You're watching the BU Start Now podcast with San Artina. This is your host, Sarah Ashley Neal. Our guest today is a fitness industry expert with over 15 years' experience. 10 years ago, he had already gained sought-after recognition from some of the top experts in the industry, winning the title as Men's Health Magazine Trainer of the Year. In addition to running his own gyms in London, overseeing and managing more than 120,000 one-to-one personal training sessions, his client list has included professional athletes, Madonna and Kate Moss. He's a digital fitness entrepreneur and business startup mentor. Known for empowering the world to get fit on their own terms, let me introduce you to Ben Camara. Ben, hi Ben, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's great to see you, as always. So excited to jump on the show. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. We're all in the UK for the listeners, and you're in London, aren't you? You're based in London?
Yes, I'm in London, yeah.
Excellent, okay. So Ben, today's show isn't about asking our listeners to avoid going to a gym. It's very much about exploring remote fitness, which I know is your passion nowadays. Can you tell me more about yourself and how you've actually become known as a remote coach these days?
Yeah, so I guess the backstory that kind of brings you to now is that I've always been in sport. I left school at 16 and went off to pursue playing professional football, which I did till my early 20s. And then I moved into the fitness industry after getting injured. And initially, I just started off as a personal trainer, worked with many different types of clients, and then I opened up a chain of gyms called No1 Fitness. So it's kind of always just transitioned to what I guess I would call more education on my standpoint. So me getting more educated to help more of my clients, and then it's led on to this new world of what we in the industry would call hybrid, I guess, where you can go to the gym and you can offer that within a gym setting, but you can also do remote training, so remote coaching, which is then obviously being able to help clients and trainers being able to use the tool remote coach, which is what we offer, to be able to help their clients anywhere at any time. And that's kind of, I guess, the backstory.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're going to explore all those different areas during the interview. But I guess with the pandemic, it must have turned your world upside down, because you did have 2 high-profile gyms in London, didn't you? And I know you won awards, which you can tell me about in a moment. Is there anything particularly, even from a resilience point of view, of how you've already bounced back? And I've known you now a couple of years. You've literally bounced back, and you're moving forward with because you're an entrepreneur anyway. Can you explore that with me?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main... Well, Remote Coach was actually first born in 2019. And so it was something that I'd been thinking about, and how I could assist. At the time I had 36 trainers working for me throughout the studios. And so how we could assist them better with clients that were international, or clients that were traveling, or athletes that we were looking after. So the initial idea and the initial concept was actually, I guess, first launched in 2019, which is crazy, because when I would be speaking to certain people, let's talk about, investment and all these sorts of things that you have to sometimes do. There was very much this, oh no, digital fitness doesn't really exist. And obviously then COVID hits, and it completely changes everything. For sure, it was very, very difficult, because, we'd owned the gyms for just over 12 years, and suddenly, this pandemic hits, and they were unsavable. So, I mean, we weren't able to reopen. We were right in the middle of central London, which is a completely different world now. But at that same point, I think I just maybe jumped into Remote Coach more to kind of help with that. You talk about resilience piece, and we've spoke about kind of the coaching side of things and health coaching. I think maybe that was also a mechanism that helped me just kind of try to to work myself through the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and it just kind of
Makes
transitioned
sense.
into that. Yeah.
Now that makes sense, because I mean, this is something I talk about, and I know you do in the work you do, about building resilience. And it's not about just being resilient when something happens. It's about learning techniques, whether it's through exercise or other lifestyle practices, so that when you get to when you have a setback in life, you're more able to cope with it. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that it's going to be any easier for you, but you've
Yeah.
already got some tools, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
In readiness. Um,
Totally agree.
well, as I said to the listeners, we're going to sort of move in and out of some of these topics, because Ben's got a lot of experience and a lot to share. One thing I wanted to talk about, to go backwards in time, is a little bit about the history of fitness.
Hmm.
And what I want to sort of bring into our podcast is some fun facts, because back in the day, I mean, thousands of years ago, I mean, BBC talked about this in their work life articles during the pandemic, that
Yeah.
the Greeks were training for the Olympics thousands of
Yeah.
years ago. You've got
Yes.
yoga and Tai Chi. So exercise isn't new. And there was one little, the Centre for the Disease Control and Prevention, Centers
Yeah.
for Disease Control and Prevention. And they claim, or they said, no claims, sorry, listeners, the exercise boom is not just a fad. It is a return to natural activity which facilitates the proper function of our biochemistry and physiology.
Yeah.
And and they then begin to go on and talk about how, when we had the Neolithic
Hmm.
agriculture revolution, and
Yeah.
that's 12,000 years ago. And when communities started coming together, and people were not work they began working in a different way, communities started to actually practice exercise. And
Yeah.
even though you think back in the day you're doing a lot of physical work, and they went into more farming, and that's another topic for a podcast, because I know you're interested in
Yeah.
nutrition. uh, but isn't it interesting that we have these exercise booms, and the pandemic has created one?
Yeah.
But exercise isn't new. But do you think it's a way we approach exercise? Do you think it's mindset, or
Um,
do you?
it's a very good question, and it's really interesting you bring up the kind of the historic part of it, because yeah, I'm really, as we've spoken about, into history anyway. But yeah,
Okay.
generally speaking, when you look at, like you said, the Olympics today, the events are from those times. The throws and all this sort of stuff. So it's fascinating. But what you find within the fitness industry itself is generally, it's developed into these gymnasiums, from 50, 60 years ago now. From the boom of
Wow.
bodybuilding, so probably like 50
Mhm.
years ago, the boom of bodybuilding, and the guys, then Mr. Universe and Mr.
Mm.
Olympia, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers, and all this, really changed the landscape of how people exercised. Prior to that, you had strength training, and you had these different traditional ways of exercising, whether you were in Eastern Europe or whether you were in East Africa, completely different. But what you found was that as bodybuilding evolved and became more popular, and the actual physical appearance of how these people looked from lifting the weights in the way they did started to transition into what was going on physiologically. So,
Right.
sports science. So, what do we need to do by lifting weights to make the muscle grow, and all these sorts of things? And we've kind of lived in that sort of mindset of bodybuilding still today. People
Okay.
still believe that that the only way you can really stay fit and healthy is by going to the gym, and then they somehow think they're failing if they don't go to the gym, when in reality, like you've talked about, there are many, many different ways that you can exercise and have the
Hmm.
benefits from a physiological and mental standpoint. The aim of exercising is to move your body, and to create some sort of tension and stress through the body, a healthy stress, to create adaptation, to continue to obviously live a healthy life. And that's where we're seeing the problem, because people are not doing it. So hopefully
No, that's
that's
no,
my
that's great.
standpoint anyway.
No, I just wanted to throw that in, because I think, I mean, clearly, there's like you said, there's new developments and new styles of exercise practice that comes along. And today, as I said, we're specifically going to be sort of covering the remote fitness. But
Yeah.
again, going back to maybe not thousands of years with the Greeks, but going back even to the 80s and 90s, we saw it on television. And back then, we only had a few TV channels.
Yeah.
And we were seeing a lot of probably daytime TV, but now you've got other forms of technology and
Hmm.
YouTube, and there's lots of them out there that I'm not so familiar with yet. And you're certainly engaging them because obviously with your remote fitness
Hmm.
platform. But remote fitness has been, again, going for what would you say, since the 60s, 70s? Or would you say 70s,
Remote.
80s, remote fitness?
Yeah, I
Mm,
mean, it's probably a little bit later, I think.
later.
Yeah, I mean, you have remote fitness in the standpoint of people were given programs, especially professional athletes, would go and work with their coaches and take away the programs, which is still considered remote fitness. I think the more
Right.
boom of having remote meaning that you're not going somewhere. Obviously the boom of the Jane Fonda
Yes.
DVDs and all that
Yeah.
sort of jazz in
Mhm.
the early 90s. And so that's kind of where it showed that there was an appetite, I think. There was a
Good
market
word.
for
Hmm.
people that are looking for it's something different. And now obviously technology has evolved and you have the likes of Peloton, a digital
Mm.
experience. And I think it's only going to improve for people that want to obviously have either a hybrid, like we're talking
Hmm.
about, or
Hmm.
just want to do remote.
Absolutely. No, that's true. Because I just remember after school going home and sort of working out at home, but it might have even just been to music. I mean, it's still
Yeah,
a remote form of exercise,
completely. Yeah,
and also different cultures. Maybe
yeah,
practice different forms of exercise, and even something like the weather. I mean, in the UK, I mean, you've got runners and walkers who will go out in all weather conditions.
yeah,
But even then, if it's raining, I'm not going to go for a walk. I'm going to get wet, or
yeah,
I don't feel like going back out and traveling to the gym today because clearly they're open again and
yeah,
will begin to grow. So, encouraging people to work out at home after they get home from work, because during the pandemic, there were millions of key workers, and I think we forget that they were out and about. And not
yes,
everyone is sedentary.
no,
Unfortunately, the housing market and builders, they couldn't necessarily go out and do their work, but there's a lot of outdoor workers. And
yes,
people are doing a lot of physical activity in their job. So they
hmm,
may not want to come home and exercise, and maybe they don't need to, or they want to go to the gym. But what would you say for listeners, to the people who, even though they're working at home during the day, they
yeah,
might go, well, now I don't want to just go into the living room and do some exercise. My desk was in the corner for the last year.
yeah,
Or people who have come in from work as out and about, they're just not interested in doing exercise when they get home. Starts with mindset, then moves on
yeah.
to action. What would you say to people who say, I haven't got any energy, I'm too tired after work? What could they do just to start before we move
Yeah.
on and talk more about remote fitness?
I think, like you said, it's not about having some outlandish, you know, aspirations straight away. It's about getting started. And I think the biggest communication that I always try to give to clients is you're not doing this necessarily just to look better, right? You're doing this
Mm-hmm.
because the human body needs it. It
Yeah.
needs to move and it needs to have exercise or movement. And so I think the more that people understand or bring that type of mindset in, similar to eating,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, you know, then it's a kind of a bit of a mindset shift that it becomes where it's, oh gosh, I don't want to exercise, because I'm not going on a holiday, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
actually just, I'm going to do 20 minutes of exercise because one, it's going to help me with my nervous system. It's going to help me relax.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to actually help my energy levels once I start getting started. And I think you touched upon here in the UK as well, it does have a cultural element. In the UK, having and exercise, again, appetite is obviously different to other places, the States or North America in general, or, the Nordic countries. And I think the UK's got a lot better, definitely, this last kind of 15 years. But I think we do need to have more education for sure from a younger age, to start bringing it into actually the daily routine.
No, that's a good point, because it's again, doing too much exercise as a youngster. I know I've heard myths. I don't know whether you can dispel them. Is there a certain age where you would actually encourage children? I mean, children are doing exercise at school. I get that, PE, and they're taught. But in terms of really getting involved in sort of exercise practice, is there a certain age that you'd encourage people to start at?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to be careful when we're talking about exercising, as in, am I lifting weights? So lifting external force or mass, sorry, or am I just exercising? Am I doing movement? So am I squatting down and lunging and pushing up and pulling? I mean, kids prior to PlayStations coming out were doing that every day, right? Climbing trees and running through the fields and all that sort of stuff. So I would be actually, and there is some a lot of good kind of, I guess, thought on it that kids should be doing that from a young age, and when you're starting to look at lifting weights, that's a different ball game, obviously, because you have to take into account obviously correct form and all those sorts of things. But there is certainly not enough, in my opinion, physical education in the UK. I mean, doing an hour a week or 2 hours a week of PE through those teenage years where your body is adapting to how you're going to be as an adult, right? There's a big amounts of studies of, especially young females of a certain weight category, by 17 is really difficult for them to lose weight in their late 20s and their early 30s, because of that sort of period of our lives. So being able to introduce a really good education around sport, and of course we're talking about exercise, but it could be sport, and enforcing that to be done, I think it's only going to be beneficial for the person,
Excellent.
We've certainly, when you look at North America, I think the Americans, that they start exercising properly kind of mid-teens, of lifting weights, of teaching young girls and boys how to do that properly. And I think it shows when they get into definitely adult sports anyway.
No, thanks for touching on that, because I appreciate, we may or may not have teenagers listening to our podcast. And I know, again, that's another topic and subject altogether. And but no, thank you for covering that now. I mean, I climbed trees when I was young. I'm fortunate enough to grow up in the countryside in Devon. I think you were from Devon, or you grew up in Devon?
Yeah, same.
Yeah. So, there's plenty of countryside down there, and usually I was falling out of trees, but that's another story altogether. Going back to the pandemic. I mean, pre-pandemic, we've already explored that people were doing remote exercise. But I'm not the biggest person to remember stats. I know people spout off a lot of different stats, and they come from a lot of different sources. And really, we're able to go and Google these days, or whatever search engine, and find out for yourself. But some of the ones I've come across have talked about, over 50% of UK consumers in the UK they bought a fitness product. Not talking about a Swiss ball or whatever, an actual home workout software during the pandemic. And I'm wondering how many people you reckon, this is a bit of a play with words, would actually continue now the pandemic's over? Or do you think people are beginning to just become more aware that they can do more from home?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, because the stats on now post-pandemic, I mean, you could call it post-pandemic, or whether we're still in it, but they're not that clear. The fitness industry, unfortunately, especially here in the UK, is very fragmented on being able to get real source data. And Leisure Database is a place, if anyone is interested, run by a fantastic team who here in London, who do great work.
Myself.
Yeah. and it is fragmented. But what I think you're finding now is that we started to first question, okay, so are people doing the gym or are they doing remote? And ultimately, or let's call it digital, but ultimately now we
Digital.
are realizing that, like I said, I mentioned before, that many people are doing some sort of hybrid. So they are
Hmm.
going to the gym, or the classes, or the boutiques, but they're also still following some of the things that we're doing during the pandemic. Or on the third case, they are, if you go to the gym, you'll see many people following their digital workout, but in the gym space. So they might just be leaving their
Right.
home, going to the gym and following their iPad or following their phone to get a bit more guidance. And I think that's what the real key thing that remote digital fitness has done. It's been able to give more opportunity of the content to be followed. So I can now do my workout that I want to follow, and someone's telling me what to do, but I can go to the gym rather than just going to the gym and not knowing what to do.
That's a really good point. And hybrid exercise, we're also talking, I mean, would going for a run be
Yeah, for sure.
a
Yeah,
hybrid exercise, or walk, or even with, I've said this before and I talk about it in the work that I do, even dancing or golf
yeah,
or whatever form of exercise that's actually out and about and you're doing actively, um,
exactly. Yeah,
is exercise, isn't it? And that would complement, whether you decide to do 20 push-ups in the morning or whether you're doing a yoga
totally.
practice at night at home, which again, has people been doing for years. Um, no, that's interesting, and I like the word digital fitness, and I know it's part of your
Mm,
your language, isn't it, with your business, digital fitness.
yeah.
We've talked about individuals working from home, but
Hmm.
what would you say about remote or digital fitness with companies? Because I know you
Yeah.
do work with companies and you've got experience around that. And
Yeah.
again, working online, how easy is it to do a digital class online for companies?
I think this is actually one of the things, a really good question, because I think it's something that a lot of companies are missing. So, the
Hmm.
way that the Remote Coach platform works is we provide the tool for the coaches and for the fitness, let's call them the influencers.
Hmm.
And we did, though, however, do some work with the NHS, which was really kind of highlight for us during the pandemic, where we provided free um, access to the platform, and so that the
Hmm.
nurses could have one-to-one sessions, or they could join group sessions, so they could fit it around their schedule when they were obviously working, God knows how many hours.
Oh,
So,
good. Well, this is
I think most companies realize that they want to do some sort of wellness, or offer some fitness solutions for their staff, but we're still kind of in that landscape of just offering a gym membership, of like, okay, well, you
okay.
work here and you get the gym membership half price or whatever. But for those are the employees that are working remotely now and maybe only going to the office once a week, it doesn't really work. So offering a
Mm.
digital solution whereby that remote employee can do that session still the same way that they would have maybe gone to a gym, and do it at home, or you have an office space within
Mm.
the company where that people can go and do some exercise, I think is something that more and more of the bigger companies for sure are looking at, especially with
Looking at.
international employees.
I mean, years ago, I'd go into companies and I'd be doing like nutritional workshops
Hmm.
and life balance workshops, and I'd bring in a Pilates tutor. It could be someone doing smoking cessation. It could be
Hmm.
whoever, and they'd come in and we'd book a room out, and it'd all be live.
Hmm.
And sometimes you couldn't always get enough people in that room at that time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that the wellness EAP, employee assisted program, didn't work. It was that
Yeah.
not, maybe somebody had to go out on their job or they were off sick. So you may end up with 10 people in the room instead of 20 or 30.
Yeah. Now
And
imagine
so
if you
by
could live
working,
stream that.
well, exactly. So tell me a little bit more about your business in the context so that we can
Yeah, so the
our
remote
listeners?
coach platform, what we provide is if you are a fitness trainer and you want to start adding some virtual sessions, sorry, so you've got clients that you want to suddenly train your aunt who lives in Scotland. You'd never been able
Hmm.
to do that before. You can download the remote coach app and you can start training, your favorite aunt and chatting to them and putting programs in place. That's one side of the spectrum. And then the other side of the
Hmm.
spectrum, we provide for fitness influencers. We provide them with their own branded app. So we power their whole
Okay.
digital fitness offering. So you'll see some of the UK's biggest fitness influencers saying, come and train with me directly, join the community, and then we power that for them. So we take care of the whole technical element. That's how we
Right.
basically work. Yeah.
Okay, because as well, clearly and I know, starting a business, you just want to get hands on and do your work, and there's a lot more to it. On your remote platform, do you also have other other sources and other platforms? You've got articles on there, haven't you, and videos and
Yes, certainly. So
coaching support?
yeah, exactly. So we try to help the fitness professionals as much as possible. So, we help them with their content. It could be recipes for their clients, for their subscribers, wellness blogs, all those type of things. Sometimes a bit of marketing strategy. So we really try to be a partner, just not just a technical provider,
Right.
so that we can help them grow. Yeah.
That's a good word, partner. I like that because I know one of your posts, I think you post quite a lot on LinkedIn, and it was talking about how you'd probably gone through your articles and
Yeah.
you'd seen that a lot of the readers were really interested um, in movement, and that
Yeah,
they weren't, there still needs to be more said about doing more movement.
for
What
sure.
was that? What was specific? Was anything specific about that?
It's interesting
Was
you
it a long
picked up
time
on that
ago?
one.
Was there?
No, no,
Yeah.
no. So the physical inactivity. Um, so physical inactivity for those that are listening that aren't quite sure is obviously not moving enough, and
Hmm.
the World Health Organization now place that as the fourth biggest global killer. So if we put that into perspective, of things that people are dying from, and having not enough movement being one of them is pretty crazy to me
Mm.
anyway. And
One in
so
four.
yeah, we were looking at the data and yeah the article, and it just seemed to really pique people's interest, in that I think it's not really talked about enough.
Hmm.
How by not exercising, you're actually really damaging your body. We speak about smoking too much and all these sorts of things, but there's not really much media around how you need to be doing some level of exercise,
Mm.
or it's going to really damage you. Yeah.
When we did some coaching together a couple of years ago or last year, I don't know, time's flying by so fast. And and I used to say to you, even in the work that I do and the work that I'm planning to do, want to what level of information do you give people? Because sometimes it's not that we don't know what to do, but we either don't remember or we need a little bit of accountability or a bit of prompting occasionally. And so I think I used to mention to you, well, everyone knows to drink 8 glasses of water or whatever.
Hmm.
Everyone knows to get, walk around the block and do a health walk, have some fresh air. And I remember you specifically saying to me, but do they? You
Yeah.
challenged me, and I said, "Yeah, but," and it was, and maybe as someone in the field of wellness, and
Hmm.
obviously your coaches
Hmm.
that you're bringing on board, sometimes we've got to just put out the obvious and put out some of the simple tips around the
Yes,
benefits of movement, the
totally.
benefits, because otherwise, I think we are, yeah, we can sail through life going, well, we all know about that. Well, if we do, why aren't we doing it?
Yeah.
If we know the benefits, why aren't we,
Yeah.
doing that extra 5 minutes in the morning at night?
I think it goes down to, we put out a lot of information saying that, you know, we advise to drink X amount of water rather than, saying to people,
Just have some.
you should be drinking X amount of water. because there's a big difference. Because and that's why I personally believe that yes, we all of the information is out there. There's probably too much information now for people to grasp, but
Mm-hmm.
computing that information in a way that's right for them is where people struggle with,
Mm-hmm.
because telling someone to drink 5 glasses of water, whatever, when do you drink it? Do you drink it when you wake up? Do you drink it just throughout the day? Because everyone does it in different ways. And this is the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think the strategies around the information that we're trying to give to people to live a healthier life needs to be a lot better. And it goes to so many things. We've spoken about, people that smoke. We all know that smoking is not good for you at all.
Mm-hmm.
However, people generally don't change that until it's their own computing of that information to trick that mindset, to switch that mindset, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
to start saying,
Mm-hmm.
actually, do you know what? I am going to stop smoking. And it can be so many different things. It could just be, I've gone down to Bend and pick up my grandchild, and I found it really hard. My chest was sore. Suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
something goes, I'm going to stop smoking. Could be completely
Yeah.
something different, And so, with all this information, it's not just about, like you said, information. It's really about education, and the key of that education
Mm-hmm.
piece of educating someone. And if they are educated, then they are upskilling themselves, right? They're not just
Mm-hmm.
knowing
Good word.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's where I'm hugely passionate about trying to give the information in that way.
No, and that makes sense. And something you'll know I'm passionate about is, creating a holistic well-being mindset. And I know
Yes.
that
Yeah.
even in your profiles, you're very much the same ilk about working holistically with people.
Totally.
And whatever it is, whatever wellness activity it is, we still want it to align with our values, our lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
We don't all work during the day. People work at night. There's shift
Yep.
work. There's rotas. There's people don't even know what hours they're doing next week, maybe until the Friday. If we're talking to adult listeners, it is about taking accountability and responsibility for how we live our life. And then that sounds great. Even if we go on an online course or we're in a community group, it's all great and we're talking to people. You step back out of that into your own life.
Yeah.
You've got to then airlift those words. You've got to do something with that information. And then you'll think, well, it was great when we were talking about it, but now we've got to do it. And it doesn't work around the kids, it doesn't work around my job. So very passionate about helping people to look at their lifestyle before they often make some of their own changes.
For sure.
Sorry.
And I think, I think progress is something that we always used to coin in the studios was, don't be chasing this perfection, chase progress though. Be proud of your progress. Are you progressing in you being a human, one of these tiny specks like we all are on this planet? And, are you progressing each week to be a better version of yourself, not in just fitness, but everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are you giving yourself that, without sounding too kind of, I don't know what, but are you giving yourself that, your personal love to yourself to make you
let's
progress?
share the love on this podcast.
Yeah,
let's share the
to
love.
make you progress. You need to really take some sort of self-awareness to ensure that you are, because by doing those things that are not healthy habits will, unfortunately, as we know, catch up with everyone. And so, I think that's where we could help by providing, like you said, which you're always talking about, bringing that holistic lifestyle in, and having that, your life then after that being benefited from it.
And having those honest conversations as well
Totally.
with ourselves. And just bringing it back to digital fitness and remote fitness. I think it is about finding out what you also could enjoy and how it's going to work for you. And then sourcing somebody to help you. I mean, what would you say to somebody who has never had an online coach, has never had a coach in exercise? I mean, it would be lovely if someone could hold a hand sort of 3 or 4 times a week, but by working the way you do, you probably can, can't you?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there's some fantastic coaches. I was speaking to a coach just before coming onto this podcast who's based down in Naples, Florida. She works with a lot more elderly clients, that have been
Hmm.
really a bit worried about going into the public because of the pandemic. So, using remote
Of
fitness in that
course.
case, helping them just go through basic movements of ensuring that they're getting up and down out of their chairs. And it's really, really powerful when you start hearing stories like that. And I think
Absolutely.
for many people that are thinking about doing some sort of exercise or potentially using a remote coach or looking at digital fitness, there's everything out there now. There are
Yeah.
yoga teachers from India, on
Hmm.
an app called Sava. Sarvesh and the team there are fantastic. You can go to any more higher intensity apps such
Hmm.
as Haley Madigan and Maeve Madden who use the remote coach platform. So there's so many options for you now that
Mm.
it just takes you to come out of your everyday life, take a minute,
Hmm.
look at what you want to do, and then try it out, you know, similar
Absolutely.
to going out and trying out a new restaurant or whatever it might be. Try it out. Give it a one
I'm
session,
all for
two
that.
session.
I'm all for
Yeah.
that. Uh, yeah, talking about food now, that'll get me onto another subject altogether. Um, so just again, just coming back to, I know time's shifting here, but coming back again to your setup, your
Yeah.
business, the remote coach. Let me get this clear for listeners. They've probably got it before I have. The actual platform. People can go on everyday Joe public like me. They can go onto the platform and then they can find a coach that suits them. Is that correct?
No. So we
Okay,
provide the tool for the trainers. So
just the tools. Okay,
yes, yeah. So the trainers are the ones that are, I guess, in our essence, the customers. Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we provide that infrastructure, as we call it, for the trainers to go and help more people.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. So I hope that has.
Yeah,
And do you yourself? Do you do any personal training yourself anymore out there and about with?
I do.
I know
I
you. I know
do.
you've mixed with celebrities before, and in the past, I won't name drop Madonna. Oops, I didn't say that, but you did. I mean, this gentleman's got so much experience, guys. We're over 15 years in the industry, isn't
It is, and that's showing my age now, Sarah.
it?
No, yeah, I
Um,
still, I've always still, continued to train a few clients because just I love the job. I love, seeing and being around, like you've spoken about, connecting with people and trying to, help them as much as I can, even if it's a little bit or if it's a big bit through a period. And so, yeah, very fortunate to work with some fantastic people. I do that both in person and remotely. So again, talking about hybrid, I have some clients that I look after through using the remote coach platform.
mhm.
And also then still have clients that I see face to face now that the pandemic has kind of calmed down. And so, yeah, we'll probably continue to do that. I hope so
Excellent.
anyway.
Yeah, you want to keep your hand in there, don't you? And do you still run the personal trainer certificated course? Is that still
We
available for people?
We don't anymore. No, unfortunately.
Okay.
So that was part of the studios, and yeah, so we used to, like you said, we used to help certify trainers both here and internationally. And then through the pandemic, we did do quite a few, but after gosh, I'm just trying to think now. So it was May 20. So yeah, probably around about the end of 2021, we stopped doing the courses as well, only because really the classroom settings and all those sorts of stuff weren't still really that easy to navigate.
Right. Yeah.
So we might go back to it. That was really, really enjoyable as well.
Excellent. Okay. So Ben, where can people find you? Where can they find you? We'll put things in the show notes. That's where can they find
Yeah,
you?
you can find me. I love a bit of Twitter, so you can find me at just Ben
Mm-hmm.
Camara. on Twitter. Most of my handles are actually just Ben Camara. So I'm on Instagram, that's Ben Camara, and connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, happy to. And obviously, if you're a trainer or a fitness professional or an influencer that's looking to launch an app, etc., head over to remotecoach.fit. That's where you'll see more about what we're doing.
Excellent. Okay, I mean, there's lots of takeaways. Is there any one particular piece of advice, too strong a word, but any tip that you would give listeners to, if they haven't considered doing any form of exercise, what would you tell them to do straight away? Just one tip. I know we've covered a lot.
I would say, what more can you do? And don't get overwhelmed, like I said before, about chasing this perfection. 20, 25 minutes every single day of something. Can you walk to work? Can you get out of bed and just do 25 bodyweight squats and 25 push-ups, before you get into the shower? What can you do to tick the box on a daily basis? Just like you get into the shower, you brush your teeth, you have your breakfast, or you don't have your breakfast, you have your morning coffee, tick the box, and keep moving. Because if
it doesn't have to be this, sorry.
No, sorry,
Ben. No, I was going to say, and it doesn't have to be the same thing every day, because that's often what leads to
it doesn't.
boredom,
Not when you're starting off. Not when you're starting off. But if you want to improve, you've got to move.
Love it. Want to improve, you've got to move. You've coined that phrase.
I've coined that 15 years ago, and I'm still using it.
Lovely. Well, Ben, thank you ever so much for being on the show today. I mean,
as I said,
your wealth of No, you're absolutely welcome. We'll have you back on again if you'd like to. So
Brilliant.
We'll talk to you about that another time. All right. Take care of yourself.
Thanks,
you.
Sarah.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye. And remember, our show's about helping you to create healthier habits in the life you live now until new lifestyle practices change how you live your life. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for watching and taking time out to join us. If you enjoyed the show, it would be really great if you could leave a review. And I look forward to welcoming you back to the show next week. This has been your host, Sarah Ashley Neal.